Welcome, grave listeners. You have unearthed the Dr. Bones Halloween show, featuring Sternum Carpals and the Skulkers. Now, please put your phalanges together. He's the thunder from 6 feet under. Your gaunt savant, Dr. Bones.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Dr. Bones Halloween show. I am Dr. Bones. I'm going to be hosting the show with the help of a few key members. Let me first introduce the announcer, Mr. Sammy Skulls.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Happy Summerween, Sammy.
Happy Summerween to you, Doc.
Sammy, in addition to being a great announcer, is also my wonderful teaching assistant, and he is going to be announcing the show for me. All right, with that, let's get into our first segment. Take us in, Sammy.
Here to answer that age-old question, what's the deal with Halloween? Please welcome to the stage, Dr. Bones.
Thank you. It's great to be here. What is the deal with Halloween? Do you guys like vampires? Let me ask you this. What is a vampire's favorite ice cream? Vanilla. Vanilla. Boy, that is a posh-sounding flavor. I guess that's the only kind you can order when you're eating ice cream in a tuxedo. I mean, what is the deal? What do Italians eat on Halloween? Fettuccine Alfredo. I guess they're not having the vampires over for dinner. They can't cook with garlic and the guests are eating all the ice cream. I mean, what is the deal? What's an optimistic vampire's favorite drink? Be positive. Of course, I'm not talking about those emo Twilight vampires. What is the deal there? You know, their glass is half empty with sparkles in it. What do you call a vampire with asthma? Vlad the Inhaler. Vlad the Inhaler. What is the deal with that? Sounds like a great name for a goth-themed cannabis store, you know? Pass the B negative on the left-hand side. Why didn't the mummy have any friends? He was way too wrapped up in himself. What is the deal with mummies? How are you going to make any friends when no one can find the secret entrance to your house? Speaking of which, I knew this mummy who got arrested. He was way too deep into a pyramid scheme. Unwrap that one. What a ghost put on their bagels. Scream cheese. What is the deal with that? I mean, when does the cheese stop screaming? Talk about a rumble in your tummy. Must sound like a Taylor Swift concert down there. What's the doctor tell them? Shake it off? So a skeleton walks into a bar. He says to the bartender, "Give me a beer and a mop." I mean, what is the deal with the mop? If he needs a mop after drinking a beer, then he's probably not wearing any pants. So how's he carrying his wallet? How many witches does it take to change a light bulb? Depends on what they're changing it into. What is the deal with witches? You know what they're changing that light bulb into? A candle. Did you hear the Scarecrow won an award? He was outstanding in his field. I mean, what's the deal with that? Scarecrow can't accept an award, not without laminating it. What is the deal with gates around cemeteries? I guess people are dying to get in. You think the corpses feel posh, like they're living in a gated community? Well, it's the same thing, really. You got security, well-maintained lawns, lots of flowers, and the neighborhood watch is a bunch of old crows. What is the deal? I knew this guy who moved into a cemetery. He didn't like it, though. The neighbors were all rotten. Thanks, you guys been great.
Alright, all you grave robbers, coffin sobbers, and heart throbbers, let's get them bones grooving. It's time to have a listen to Dr. Bones' Halloween playlist.
Well, let me tell you about what is my most cherished of all Halloween decorations, my Halloween playlist. I've been curating this thing for well over 20 years now, and it is near and dear to my heart. To even be considered for this list, a song must first be vetted through a few criteria before it is sent on to the committee for consideration. The committee, of course, being myself, but also some helpful input from my wife, as she ultimately ends up listening to this thing through most of the spooky season as well. There are two main criteria that a song must meet in order to make the list, and I'll discuss those briefly for you today. Ultimately, what I'll do for this segment is focus on a single song on the list and talk about it in a somewhat more musical context, with some focus on the sounds and the instruments that make it so special to me. If you want to hear my full Halloween playlist, I'll put the link to it on Spotify in the show notes. I wasn't able to find everything on Spotify, but it's a good approximation, and you can hopefully enjoy it yourself. So what are the criteria for making this ever so precious list? Number 1, do I like the song? Over the course of an entire spooky season, I'll probably listen to my entire playlist at least a couple dozen times, so there isn't much point in adding a song that I don't like to hear. Seems kind of obvious to say that, but sometimes you might feel obligated to include something just because it fits the theme, but ultimately you must be honest with yourself and leave it off if it doesn't help you with your Halloween spirit. Number 2, are the lyrics or the sound of the song Halloween or macabre in nature? In other words, does it sound spooky? It doesn't have to mention Halloween specifically. I think I would end up excluding too many songs that I deeply associate with Halloween if that were the case. But if it's still spooky, it counts. Having said that, if it does mention Halloween, there's a much better chance of it making the list. I don't put anything on there that isn't spooky sounding in some way, but if it's really just a spooky title only, or it was used in a horror movie but doesn't sound spooky or have spooky lyrics, then it's not going to make it on. That rule basically ends up excluding a lot of the songs you hear on typical Halloween playlists you might find online. A lot of pop music does not make the cut. I'm going to talk about what makes something sound spooky. My very favorite songs on this list all have one thing in common. That is, the instruments or samples used in the song are usually associated with Halloween. If it's got a theremin, it's going in. So I thought in honor of the first episode today, I would talk about the song that puts me in a Halloween mood more than any other. When I hear this song, I feel the orange glow of a jack-o'-lantern in my Halloweeny soul, and I am ready to celebrate. And that song is number 37 on the playlist. Red Right Hand by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. For you more seasoned listeners, you might have first heard this song in 1996's Scream. Today it's probably more recognizable as the theme song for the TV show Peaky Blinders. I'll admit, when I started watching the first episode of Peaky Blinders, I was unsure about whether I was going to enjoy the show or not, until I heard Red Right Hand, and then I knew I was going to watch the entire show. I love how they also have multiple arrangements of Red Right Hand scattered through numerous episodes. So how does this song meet my playlist criteria? Number 1, do I like the song? I love it. Check. Number 2, does it sound spooky? It sure does, both in sound and lyrics. Check. And as a bonus, many of the instruments used are Halloweeny, which I will get into in a moment. The title Red Right Hand comes from John Milton's Paradise Lost, which refers to the vengeful hand of God. In the case of the song, referring to a godlike figure traveling the countryside offering salvation to the downtrodden, while simultaneously dishing out divine wrath and judgment. Who doesn't love a little divine wrath? So let's get into the Halloweeny instruments used in the song. Up first, the chimes. Not to be confused with wind chimes, these are also known as tubular bells. Picture a long set of metal tubes suspended from a frame. The tubes are of various lengths, which give them each a different pitch. They're most commonly used in orchestral music, and you play them by striking the top edge with a large mallet that looks something like an old-fashioned hammer, and they sound like this. Now, you can't miss this in the song. It's the very first note. So, why is this a Halloweeny sound? Well, chimes are designed to mimic the sound of tolling church bells, which ties into the theme of Red Right Hand by setting an ominous tone of doom. Now, I know what you're wondering, Dr. Bones, but what about the spooky ghost solo in verse 3? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's there, I swear. You don't hear this part in either Scream or Peaky Blinders, but this is my absolute favorite part of Red Right Hand. If you don't know what I'm referring to, have a quick listen to my playlist. Most people think it's played by a theremin, which I also thought for years, but in fact, Nick Cave added this in using an oscillator, which, like a theremin, is a device that allows you to control and manipulate sine waves. In other words, computer-generated tones. You can connect an oscillator to a keyboard and control the tone, which basically gives you a digital theremin, and that was used to create the theremin effect at the end of Thriller. So why not just play a theremin instead? Well, I have been learning to play the theremin myself. I'm still very much in the beginner stage, and I can tell you it is bloody difficult to play. One of the hardest things I've ever tried to learn, actually. Probably why there aren't too many accomplished theremin players. Now, I've got my theremin right here ready to go. This thing is about the size and shape of a loaf of bread. On the left end is a horizontal metal semicircle, and the right end has a 1.5 foot long metal rod sticking vertically out of the top. To play this, you bring the right hand closer or farther away from the rod to control the pitch, and the left hand lifts up and down above the metal ring to control the volume, like so. If you move your hand back and forth rapidly, you get that sound that you associate with flying saucers, which is really just a type of vibrato. That is to say, a fast, repeated alternating of the pitch. Wisely, it's left out of the solo. I think that would have given it a really corny sound. So that is the theremin. Head on down to your local theremin supercenter and pick one up today. You can learn to play Red Right Hand on it.
And now, with some Halloween history, Professor Scare Emeritus of Halloween Studies at Royal Pumpkin College, Spookyshire, Dr. Bones.
Good evening, class. For tonight's lecture, we will be discussing a very important Halloween institution currently celebrating its 26th season. I am talking about Lemax Spooky Town. Now, who here did the reading I assigned? That's what I thought. Alright, for those of you that didn't do the reading, Lemax was founded in 1990 by brothers Jack and Gaston Lee as a competitor to miniature village brands like Department 56, and has since become a global leader in collectible Christmas and Halloween miniature village decorations. They began with modest Christmas-themed lighted houses, and in 2000 the collection was expanded to include Halloween-themed pieces under the new banner Spooky Town. Today, the Spooky Town collection has over 1,000 items, including a wide variety of hand-painted spooky-themed animated and lighted houses, figurines, accessories, and landscaping. The animation is really where Spooky Town has set itself apart from Department 56. The larger pieces today typically have multiple layers of animation in them. There has been quite an evolution over the last 26 years. The original collection, released in 2000, had almost no animation, and the majority of the pieces were not supernatural in nature. The theme was almost entirely focused on trick-or-treating, with many of the figurines being kids dressed up in costumes. Today, Spooky Town has a much wider focus on all things macabre, with a whole miniature spooky world that exists well beyond just Halloween night or a single town. There are spooky carnivals, spooky pirates, spooky farms, spooky forests, and even the spooky Old West. I myself am a collector of Spooky Town. It can be quite addictive. Like many people, I began with a couple of small pieces, and then I decided that those pieces needed friends, and before I knew it, I had a whole shelf of Spooky Town, which then turned into a whole table, and then 2 tables. I would say my collection is still pretty modest compared to the big ones I see online. There are some really impressive displays that look like they have almost every piece. There is a collector's market for the more rare pieces, as Lemax has retired many of its items over the years. My display is a street parade scene. I have a parade of spooky vehicles driving down a road with a sidewalk full of onlookers, and behind that is a park with a gazebo, a bandstand with dancers, and a graveyard dance party. I had one extra piece that I put on a little rolling shelf beside the table, which is Frankenstein's laboratory. And then I thought, how are people going to get there from the table? So I built a rope bridge out of twine and popsicle sticks. If you get into collecting, you'll find that people will start to give you Spooky Town for birthdays, death days, Halloween, and even Christmas. And as a result, I've now expanded onto a second table against a different wall. So now I'm working on building a downtown core beside the park. But of course, that's going to mean extending the road so people can get there after the parade and shop downtown so the economy stays healthy. I do feel like a little spooky city planner. If you're interested in getting into the wonderful world of Spooky Town, there are a few hobby stores that sell pieces online. You can also find them on Amazon, usually for more money. Or you can walk into any Michael's after the 4th of July and hopefully find this year's newest pieces on display. I do love to go into Michael's in July and just admire the setup. Although I find many stores don't have the lights and the animations running yet. I'm assuming because the employees don't want to listen to it all day 4 months before Halloween. Although personally I think that would be the best reason to work there. Alright class, here is your homework. I want a 1,300 word essay on Spooky Town and its effects on society on my desk by Monday morning. Class dismissed. Alright, I think it's time that I introduce this fabulous band that has been working so hard tonight. Sternum Carpals and the Skulkers. Sternum actually teaches with me at Royal Pumpkin College. He's the head of the music department. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Sternum, aren't all the members of the Skulkers your former trombone students? Well, I hope they would be all the best ones. Now, let me ask you something, guys. When you were studying with Sternum at RPC, what was he like as a trombone teacher? And that's how the bass trombone player got fired in the first episode. No, of course not. We could never lose Alna. She has the biggest trombone. Exactly. Alright, what's up next, Sammy?
And now it's time for horror.
So back during the early COVID days, I was wondering what to do with myself during the Halloween season, as most activities were either closed or cancelled. What I ended up doing was writing a bunch of horror movie reviews and just posting them online. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to get back into it. So today I'm going to give you my review of a movie which only recently became available for streaming. Its theater run only ended in May. I'm talking about Irish director Damien McCarthy's third feature film starring Adam Scott of Parks and Rec fame, and that is Hokum. If you don't know anything about this movie, here is the brief description from IMDb. A horror writer visits an Irish inn to scatter his parents' ashes, unaware the property is said to be haunted by a witch. Thank you for that, Sternum. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You know, Dr. Bones, not every Halloweenie likes horror. Well, you are in luck, because Hokum is also a Halloween movie. I didn't realize this when I started watching it. If you've seen the trailer, there are just a couple of quick shots of pumpkins in the background, but other than that, the Halloween aspect of this isn't obvious. So I was pleasantly surprised to realize that this entire film is set right around Halloween. And not only is this a horror film and Halloween film, it's also an Irish film. Lovely. It was shot in County Cork, and most of the cast are Irish actors, which to me only makes it feel more Halloween-y, with Ireland, of course, being the birthplace of Halloween, or Samhain, as it's still celebrated there today. This movie also has real traditional jack-o'-lanterns carved out of actual turnips. They are so wonderfully creepy looking. At least, I think they were real turnips. They might have been craft turnips. I wonder if you go into a Michael's type store in Ireland, whether you can buy loads of craft turnips instead of pumpkins. Boy, I would love to visit Ireland during Samhain, but that is a topic for another day. So let's just get right into the heart of the matter. Is Hokum scary? Yeah, it is. I don't often get scared while watching horror movies, as I've seen so many, but this one did scare me. Not with jump scares, as there aren't too many, not with gore, as there's very little of that. Hokum is all about creepy atmosphere. This movie has fantastic production design. The lighting is wonderfully creepy and shows you just enough that you end up relying on your ears to fill in the fear with your imagination. The sound design is exceptional, and there is a great atmospheric score to go right along with it. I would say Hokum is primarily a haunted house movie, although with the reference to the IMDb description, there is certainly a witchy aspect to it as well. They also tie in some creepy Irish folklore, which was great to see. There are all kinds of subtle nods to classic haunted house films. The story is primarily set in an old hotel, so there are touches of The Shining, as well as the 1963 film The Haunting, and at times it reminded me of the freakiest parts of The Sixth Sense, actually. But my favorite thing about Hokum is this strange blend it has of suspense and comedy. It's actually quite funny at times, which is why Adam Scott, being a comedic actor, was a good choice for the lead role. If you've ever seen any shows or movies made in Ireland, there's a funny sort of tongue-in-cheek quality to them that's very present here. It's an unusual feeling to be both scared and laughing at the same time, but they pull it off here. It actually reminded me of the kind of roller coaster of emotions you get walking through a haunted attraction, being creeped out, and then bursting into laughter after you suddenly jump from a great scare, and then you realize how silly the whole situation is. I think Jordan Peele is another director that does this really well. I'm definitely going to check out Damien McCarthy's last movie from 2024 called Oddity, which is supposed to be quite creepy as well. Alright, so to rate this film, I'm going to use a grading system that I came up with back when I was writing all those other reviews, and that is the Pumpkin Meter. The Pumpkin Meter rates films based on 4 categories, with each category using a 10-point scale, 10 pumpkins being the highest each category can score. So first up, Category 1, the inexorable feeling of dread. Well, I think it's pretty obvious that I'm giving Hokum 10 pumpkins for that. Next, Category 2, pee your pants moments. There were many great ones, although nothing I haven't really seen before, and I didn't actually pee my pants, which is always a good day, I'm not complaining. But I'll give it 8 pumpkins. Category 3, production quality, 10 pumpkins. I think those turnips were an 11 just by themselves. Category 4, acting, which I thought was a solid 9 pumpkins. So total pumpkins, 9.25. So should you stream Hokum? Well, if you love horror, and you love Halloween, and you love Ireland, then you'd be a real turnip head not to.
And now, grave listeners, let's settle in, pull up a fresh mound, and gather around the bonfire. Please enjoy a Halloween tale with Dr. Bones.
Tonight's tale comes from a Halloween many years ago. Now don't worry, you're nice and safe here around the bonfire, but I wouldn't go wandering. There are more things to be afraid of in the woods than just wolves. Like bloodthirsty trombones. Actually, you'll be relieved to know that this is a funny Halloween tale, not a scary one. Many years ago, while I was in the middle of my university studies, the faculty decided to have a Halloween party at a pub downtown. This pub was only a block and a half away from the apartment where I was living at the time, and myself and 2 of my friends decided to go as the main characters from one of my all-time favorite comedies, The Three Amigos. So my friends came over a couple hours before the party started, and we worked on our costumes. They didn't look as flashy as in the movie, but if you remember from the end scene where all the villagers quickly make their own fake Amigos costumes to confuse the villains, they were at least that good, I would say. We head over to the pub, and it's close enough that we didn't really pass anybody on the street, so it hadn't occurred to us what we looked like to anyone else yet. This pub was really a big open concept room with a bar at the far end, and what we didn't know was that the department didn't have the entire pub reserved, just one side of it. So there were a ton of other people in there who were just normal customers. But what's important to mention here is that this was also a full week before Halloween, so there were no decorations and nobody else in the pub was dressed up. As we step in the door, I quickly realized that we were the first ones there, and just like in the movie, when they step into the cantina, all of the conversations stopped immediately, and every head turned to stare at us in disbelief as we stood in the doorway in our 3 fully decorated Amigos costumes. Now, I was playing Steve Martin's character in the movie, Lucky Day, who is the leader of the Amigos, so I decided that we should handle this the same way that they did in the movie. I turned to my friends, and in a confident, loud voice, I said, "Let's go, amigos." And we proceeded to strut across that floor, past all the customers, and up to the bar at the other end, where, just like in the movie, we ordered 3 shots of tequila. We swigged them down and did a little dance. Thankfully, as we turned around, some other members of the department had just arrived in costume, making it more obvious to the other patrons that we were all there for a Halloween party. And everybody ended up having a great night celebrating Halloween. But if you've ever wondered what it's like to walk into a room and have the metaphorical record skip as everybody suddenly stares at you, well, it's not a feeling I will ever forget. So that is tonight's Halloween tale. If you have a Halloween tale of your own that you would like to share on the podcast, please send me a message and I'd be happy to read it. It can be a real one or even something fictional that you wrote. I'd be happy to share any stories. I have a few tales to tell, which I'll keep doing if no one sends me anything, but eventually I'm going to run out, so please help me out if you can. I would just ask that you try and keep it PG. I'd like to keep this show something that Halloweenies of all ages can enjoy, so I'd rather not have to edit or bleep anybody's work. You can send me an email to thedr.boneshalloweenshow@gmail.com. That's dr.bones, or look for the Dr. Bones Halloween Show on Facebook and YouTube. This is my first time making a podcast, and I would love to hear what you think of the show. Okay, that is gonna do it for the inaugural episode of the Dr. Bones Halloween Show. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun to put together. And you know what? I think I'll do at least one more. But of course, I couldn't do this alone. A huge thank you to my announcer, my TA with a PA, Sammy Skulls. Thank you so much, Sammy.
Hey, you know it's always my pleasure, Doc.
And a big thank you to the best bony band in Halloween land, Sternum Carpals and the Skulkers. You guys are terrific. Have a happy summerween, everyone. Now it looks like the dawn is almost here. I'm off to take a long dirt nap. Until we are disturbed again, stay bona fide.